Man's first disobedience and the fruit of that forbidden tree, whose immortal taste brought death into the world and all our woe, with loss of Eden, till one greater man restore us and regain the blissful seat, sing, heavenly muse, that on the secret top of Oreb or of Sinai didst inspire that shepherd who first taught the chosen seed in the beginning how the heavens and earth rose out of chaos. Or, if Sion hill delight thee more, and Silo's brook that flowed fast by the oracle of God, I thence invoke thy aid to my adventurous song, that with no middle flight intends to soar above the Aeonian mount, while it pursues things unattempted yet, in prose or rhyme. And chiefly thou, O Spirit, that dost prefer before all temples the upright heart and pure, instruct me, for thou knowest, thou from the first was present, and with mighty wings outspread, dove-like, satst brooding on the vast abyss, and madest it pregnant. What in me is dark, illumine. What is low, raise and support, that to the height of this great argument I may assert eternal providence and justify the ways of God to men.
But say first, for heaven hides nothing from thy view, nor the deep tract of hell, say first, what cause moved our grandparents in that happy state, favoured of heaven so highly, to fall off from their Creator and transgress his will, for one restraint, lords of the world besides? Who first seduced them to that foul revolt? The infernal serpent, he it was, whose guile, stirred up with envy and revenge, deceived the mother of mankind, what time his pride had cast him out from heaven, with all his host of rebel angels, by whose aid, aspiring to set himself in glory above his peers, he trusted to have equal the Most High. If he opposed, and with ambitious aim, against the throne and monarchy of God, raised impious war in heaven, and battle proud, with vain attempt. Him the almighty power hurled headlong, flaming from the ethereal sky, with hideous ruin and combustion down to bottomless perdition, there to dwell in adamantine chains and permanent fire, who durst defy the omnipotent to arms. 9 times the space that measures day and night to mortal men, he with his horrid crew lay vanquished, rolling in the fiery gulf, confounded though immortal. But his doom reserved him to more wrath, for now the thought of both of lost happiness and lasting pain torments him. Round he throws his baleful eyes, that witnessed huge affliction and dismay, mixed with obdurate pride and steadfast hate. At once, as far as angels ken, he views the dismal situation, waste and wild, a dungeon horrible, on all sides round, as one great furnace flame. Yet from those flames no light, but rather darkness visible, served only to discover the sights of woe, regions of sorrow, doleful shades, where peace and rest can never dwell. Hope never comes to that comes to all, but torture without end still urges, and a fiery deluge, fed with ever-burning sulphur unconsumed, such place eternal had prepared for those rebellious. Here their prison ordained, in utter darkness, for their portion set as far removed from God and light of heaven as from the centre thrice to the utmost pole. Oh, how unlike the place whence they fell! There the companions of his fall, overwhelmed with floods and whirlwinds of tempestuous fire, he soon discerns, and weltering by his side, one next himself in power and next in crime, long after known in Palestine and named Beelzebub, to whom the arch enemy, and thence in heaven called Satan, with bold words, breaking the horrid silence, thus began,
If thou beest he, but oh how fallen, how changed from him who in the happy realms of life, clothed with transcendent brightness, didst outshine myriads, O bright. If he whom mutual league, untied thoughts and counsels, equal hope and hazard in the glorious enterprise, joined with me once, now misery hath joined in equal ruin, into what pit thou seest from that height fallen, so much the stronger, provided he with his thunder. Until then, who knew the force of those dire arms? Yet not for those, nor what the potent victor in his rage can else inflict, do I repent or change, thou changed in outward lustre. That fixed mind and high disdain from sense of injured merit, that with the mightiest raised me to contend, and to the fierce contention brought along innumerable forces of spirits armed, that durst dislike his reign, and me preferring his utmost power, with adverse power opposed, in dubious battle on the plains of heaven, and shook his throne. What though the field be lost, all is not lost. The unconquerable will and study of revenge, immortal hate and courage, never to submit or yield. And what is else not to be overcome? That glory never shall his wrath or might extort from me. To bow and sue for grace with suppliant knee, and defy his power, who from the terror of this arm so late doubted his empire, that were low indeed, that were an ignominy and shame beneath this downfall. Since by fate the strength of gods and this imperial substance cannot fail, since through experience of this great event, in arms not worse, in foresight much advanced, we may with more successful hope resolve to wage, by force or guile, eternal war, irreconcilable to our grand flow, who now triumphs, and in the excess of joy, sole reigning holds the tyranny of heaven.
So spake the postate angel, though in pain, vaunting aloud, but racked with deep despair, and him thus answered soon his bold compare.
O Prince, O Chief of many thrones, that led the embattled seraphim to war, under thy contact in dreadful deeds, fearless, endangered heaven's perpetual king, and put to proof his high supremacy, whether upheld by strength, or chance, or fate. Too well I see and rue the dire event, that with sad overthrow and foul defeat hath lost his heaven, and all his mighty host in horrible destruction thus laid low, as far as gods and heavenly essences can perish, for the mind and spirit remains invincible, and vigour soon returns. Though all our glory extinct and happy state, here swallowed up in endless misery, but what of our conqueror, of whom I know of force believe almighty, since no less than such would have overpowered such force as ours, have left us with our spirit and strength entire, strong to suffer and to support our pains. Thus we may so suffice his vengeful ire, or do him mightier service as his thralls by right of war, whate'er his business be, but here in the heart of hell to work in fire, or do his errands in the gloomy deep. What can it then avail, though yet we feel strength undiminished, or eternal being to undergo eternal punishment? Whereto the speedy words of the arch-fiend replied,
Fallen cherub, to be weak is miserable, doing or suffering. But of this be sure, to do aught good never will be our task, but ever to do ill our sole delight, as being the contrary to his high will whom we resist. If then his providence out of our evil seek to bring forth good, our labour must be to pervert that end, and out of good still to find means of evil, which oft may succeed, so as perhaps shall grieve him if I fail not, and disturb his inmost counsels from their destined aim. But see, the angry victor hath recalled his ministers of vengeance and pursuit back to the gates of heaven. the sulphurous hall, shot after us in storm, Oblurn hath laid the fiery surge that from the precipice of heaven received us falling, and the thunder, winged with red lightning and impetuous rage, perhaps has spent his shaft, and ceases now to bellow through the vast and boundless deep. Let us not slip the occasion, whether scorn or satiate fury yield it from our foe. See thou yon dreary plain, forlorn and wild, the seat of desolation, void of life, save what the glimmering of these livid flames casts pale and dreadful? Thither let us tend from the tossing of these fiery waves, their rest, if any rest can harbour there, and reassembling our afflicted powers, consult how we may henceforth most offend our enemy, our own loss how repair, how overcome this dire calamity, what reinforcement we may gain from hope, if not what resolution from despair.
Thus Satan, talking to his nearest mate, with head uplift above the wave, and eyes that sparkling blazed, his other parts besides prone on the flood, extended long and large, lay floating many a rood, in bulk as huge, as whom the fables name of monstrous size, Titanian, or earthborn, that warred on Jove, Briareus or Typhon, whom the den by ancient Tarsus held, or that sea beast Leviathan, which God of all his works created hugest, that swim the ocean stream, him haply slumbering on the Norway foam, the pilot of some small, night-founded skiff, deeming some island oft a seaman's hurl, with fixed anchor on in his scaly rind, moors by his side under the lee, while night invests the sea, and wished morn delays. So stretched out huge in length the arch-fiend lay, chained on the burning lake, nor ever thence has risen or heaved his head, but that the will and high permission of all-ruling heaven left him at large to his own dark designs, that with reiterated crimes he might heap on himself damnation, while he sought evil to others, and enraged might see how all his malice served but to bring forth infinite goodness, grace, and mercy shown on man by him seduced, but on himself treble confusion, wrath, and vengeance poured. Forthwith upright, he rears from off the pool his mighty stature. On each hand the flames, driven backward, slope their pointing spires, and rolled in billows, leave in the midst a horrid veil. Then with expanded wings he steers his flight aloft, incumbent on the dusky air, that felt unusual weight, till, on dry land, he lights, if it were land that ever burned with solid as the lake with liquid fire. And such appeared in hue as when the force of subterranean wind transports a hill torn from Pelorus, or the shattered side of thundering Etna, whose combustible and fueled entrails, thus conceiving fire, sublimed with mineral fury, aid the winds and leave a singed bottom all involved with stench and smoke. Such resting found the soul of unblessed feet. Him followed his next mate, both glorying to have escaped the Stygian flood, as gods, and by their own recovered strength, not by the sufferance of supernal power.
Is this the region, this the soil, the clime?
Said the lost archangel.
This the seat that we must charge for heaven, this mournful gloom for that celestial light? Be it so, since he who now is sovereign can dispose and bid with what shall be right. Farthest from him is best, whom reason hath equal, force hath made supreme above his equals. Farewell, happy fields, where joy forever dwells. Hail, horrors! Hail, infernal world! And thou profoundest hell, receive thy new possessor. one who brings a mind not to be changed by place or time. The mind is its own place, and in itself can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven. What matter where if I still be the same, what I should be, all but less than he whom thunder hath made greater? Here at least we shall be free. The Almighty hath not built here for his envy, and will not drive us hence. Here we may reign secure, and in my choice to reign is worth ambition, though in hell. Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven. But wherefore let we then our faithful friends, the associates and co-partners of our loss, lie thus astonished on the oblivious pool, and call them not to share with us their part in this unhappy mansion, or once more with rallied arms to try what may be yet regained in heaven, or what more lost in hell?
So Satan spoke, and him Beelzebub thus answered.
Leader of those armies bright, which but the omnipotent none could have foiled. If once they hear that voice, their liveliest pledge of hopes in fears and dangers heard so often, in worst extremes and on perilous edge of battle when it ranged, in all assaults, their surest signal they will soon resume, new courage and revive, though now they lie grovelling and prostrate on yon lake of fire. And we erewhile astounded and amazed, no wonder fallen on such a pernicious height.
He scarce had ceased when the superior fiend was moving towards the shore. His ponderous shield, ethereal temper, massy, large and round, behind him cast, the broad circumference hung on his shoulders like the moon, whose orb through optic glass the Tuscan artist views at evening from the top of Fesoli, or in Valdano, to descry new lands, rivers or mountains, in her spotty globe. His spear, to equal which the tallest pine hewn on Norwegian hills, to be the mast of some great amiral, were but a wand he walked with to support uneasy steps over the burning marl, not like those steps on heaven's azure, and the torrid climb smote on him sore besides, vaulted with fire. And the less he so endured, till on the beach of that inflamed sea he stood and called his legions, angel forms, who lay in transit thick as autumnal leaves that strow the brooks in Vallombrosa, where Thentarian shades high overarched in bower, or scattered sedge afloat, when with fierce winds Orion armed hath vexed the Red Sea coast, whose waves overthrew Busiris and his Memphian chivalry, while with perfidious hatred they pursued the sojourns of sojourns, who beheld from the safe shore their floating carcasses and broken chariot wheels. So thick bestrown, abject and lost lay these, covering the flood under amazement of their hideous change. And he called so loud that all the hollow deep of hell resounded.
Princes, potentates, warriors, the flower of heaven once yours, now lost, if such astonishment as this can seize eternal spirits, or have ye chosen this place after the toil of battle to repose your wearied virtue for the ease you find to slumber here as in the vales of heaven? Or in this abject posture have ye sworn to adore the conqueror, who now beholds cherub and seraph rolling in the flood with scattered arms and ensigns, till anon his swift pursuers from heaven's gates discern the advantage, and descending tread us down, thus drooping, or with linked thunderbolts transfix us to the bottom of this gulf. Awake, arise, or be forever fallen.
They heard and were abashed, and up they sprung upon the wing, as when men, wont to watch on duty, sleeping found by whom they dread, rouse and bestir themselves ere well awake. Nor did they perceive the evil plight in which they were, or the fierce pains not feel, yet to their general's voice they soon obeyed innumerable. As when the potent rod of Amram's son in Egypt's evil day waved round the coast, up called a pitchy cloud of locusts, whooping on the eastern wind that o'er the realm of impious Pharaoh hung like night, and darkened all the land of Nile. So numberless were those bad angels seen hovering on the wing under the cope of hell, twixt upper, nether, and surrounding fires, till as a signal given, the uplifted spear of the great Sultan, waving to direct their course in even balance, down they light on the firm brimstone, and fill all the plain. A multitude like which the populous north poured never from her frozen loins to pass Rhine or the Dando, where her barbarous sons came like a deluge on the south and spread beneath Gibraltar to the Libyan sands. Forthwith from every squadron and every band the heads and leaders hither hast, where stood their great commander, godlike shapes and forms, excelling human, princely dignities and powers that erst in heaven sat on thrones, though of their names in heavenly records now be no memorial blotted out and razed by their rebellion from the books of life. Nor had they among the sons of Eve got them new names, till wandering o'er the earth through God's high sufferance for the trial of man, by falsities and lies, the greatest part of mankind they corrupted, to forsake God their Creator, and the invisible glory of him that made them, to transform after the image of a brute, adorned with gay religions full of pomp and gold, and the devils to adorn for deities. Then were they known to men by various names, and various idols through the heathen world. Say Muse, their names then known, who first, who last, roused from the slumber on that fiery couch, at their great emperor's call, as in the next worth, came singly, where he stood on the bare strand, while the promiscuous crowd stood yet aloof? The chief were those who from the pit of hell, roaming to seek their prey on earth, durst fix their seats long after next the seat of God, their altars by his altar, gods adorned amongst the nations round, and durst abide Jehovah thundering out of Zion, throned between the cherubim. Yea, oft placed within his sanctuary itself their shrines, abominations, and with the cursed things his holy rites, and the solemn feasts profaned, and with their darkness durst affront his light.
First Moloch, horrid king besmeared with blood of human sacrifice and parents' tears, though for the noise of drums and tumbrils loud, their children's cries unheard, though passed through fire. To his grim idol, him the Ammonite, worshipped in Rabbah and her watery plain, in Argob and Bazan, to the stream of utmost Arnon. Nor content with such audacious neighbourhood, with the wisest heart of Solomon, he led by fraud to build his temple right against the temple of God on that opprobrious hill, and made his grove the pleasant valley of Hinnom. Tophet thence and black Gehenna called, the type of hell. Next, Chemos, the obscene dread of Moab's sons, from Orah, Nebo, and the wild of the southmost, Abrim, Hesebon, and Haranem, Sion's realm, beyond the flowery dale of Sibma, clad with vines, and Elil, the asphaltic pool. Peor, his other name, when he enticed Israel in Sittim on their march from the mile, to do them wanton rites which cost them woe. Yet thence his lustful orgies he enlarged, even to that hill of scandal, by the grove of Moloch, homicide, lust, hard by hate, till good Josiah drove them thence to hell.
With these came they, who from the bordering flood of old Euphrates to the brook that parts Egypt from Syrian ground, had general names of Baalim and Ashtaroth, those male, those feminine. For spirits, when they please, can either sex assume, or both. So soft and uncompounded is their essence pure, not tied nor manacled with joint or limb, not founded on the brittle strength of bones like cumbrous flesh, but in what shape they choose, dilated or condensed, bright or obscure, can execute their airy purposes, and works of love or enmity fulfill. For those the race of Israel oft forsook their living strength, and unfrequented left his righteous altar, bowing lowly down to bestial gods, for which their heads as low bowed down in battle, sunk before the spear of despicable foes.
With these in troop came Ashtoreth, whom the Phoenicians called Astarte, Queen of Heaven, with crescent horns, to whose bright image, nightly by the moon, Sidonian virgins paid their vows and songs. In Sion also, not unsung, where stood her temple on the offensive mountain, built by that uxorious king, whose heart, though large, beguiled by fair adulteresses, fell to idols foul.
Thamus came next behind, whose annual wound in Lebanon allured the Syrian damsels to lament his fate, in amorous ditties all a summer's day, while smooth Adonis from his native rock ran purple to the sea, supposed with blood of Thamus yearly wounded. The love tale infected Sion's daughters with like heat, whose wanton passions in the sacred porch Ezekiel saw, when by the vision led his eye surveyed the dark idolatries of alienated Judah.
Next came one who mourned in earnest, when the captive ark maimed his brute image, heads and hands lopped off in his own temple on the Grunsel edge, where he fell flat and shamed his worshippers. Dagon his name, sea monster, upward man and downward fish, yet had his temple high reared Azotus, dreaded through the coast of Palestine, in Gath and Ascalon, and Acheron and Gaza's frontier bonds.
Him followed Rimmon, whose delightful seat was fair Damascus on the fertile banks of Abana and Pharpar, lucid streams.